gas station goes. That used to run it. Yeah, okay.
7 o'clock. Call meeting Monday, December 4th. Village board meeting order. Roll call.
Ingram.
Yes.
DeVos.
Yes.
Titus.
Yes.
Northwell.
Yes.
St. John.
Yes.
Salts.
Yes.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 1 is approval of the regular session minutes from November the 6th. We received those. Do I have any questions, comments, corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve regular minutes.
Motion by Stoltz. Need a second?
I'll second it.
Shorty. Call for vote.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Item number 2 is approval of the special meeting minutes. That meeting was held on November 22nd. We also received that, so if no one has any questions or comments on that, I'd entertain a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Motion and a second. Call for vote.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Approval of bills payable. Bills for December of 17. Anybody got any questions, comments?
Can I get a copy of them? Thank you.
If anyone has anything, need a motion to accept the bills?
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Have a
Accept the
motion?
bills.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second, to pay bills for December of 2017, call for vote.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Next is our audit report. Nick Siebenaler?
$7.
Siebenaler.
Close.
Close enough.
From Gilbert, Mesker, and Madigan.
Yes, thank you. Everyone should have a copy of the financial statement. It's in the board packet. It's the blue bound report that you guys have. You should also have 2 additional letters that were included with that.
There's one back.
Did you s-
Paper clip through the.
Okay. One is a 3-page letter, the other is a 2-page letter. They don't really have titles on the top. But the one I wanted to go over first was the 2-page letter. This is called the management letter. So anytime that we do an audit, we're required to go through your procedures and look at your internal controls. And if we note any deficiencies, we're required to communicate them to the board. So for this year's audit, which is for the year ending April 30th, 2017, we did have 2 findings to report. The first one is at the bottom of the first page, and it's titled Financial Statement Preparation. And this was the same finding that we did have last year. And the basic idea behind this is that there's no one employed by the government that has the proper accounting knowledge to review the financial statements and would recognize if there's a misstatement in those statements. So what we're required to do is basically just indicate that there's a finding related to that and make sure the board is aware of it. And like I said, we had this finding last year. If you go to the top of page 2, is our second finding. And again, this was what we reported last year to the board, and it's related to the organizational structure. Because there's so few employees in the accounting department, you guys have trouble properly separating duties that we would normally separate and be comfortable with. So again, what we do is report the finding. You guys are aware of that, and this is a situation where you guys are just such a small government that you guys don't have enough employees to.
And
separate
basically,
duties.
that is like that with, we're not just an exception out there, you need to,
For a government of this size, both these findings are common.
yeah, okay.
So,
In my representation of several municipalities, this is common. They just have to cover their bases
Yeah.
and their findings, and so this is standard.
I just wanted to clarify that.
yeah. And those were actually the only 2 findings, which is pretty good. I think we had like 4 findings last year. So I wanted to turn to the actual financial statements. So these are basically the same format as you had last year. There were no significant changes. There were no new accounting policies that we had to implement. So I wanted to start on page 1 and 2. So this is our actual audit report, where we provide our opinion as to whether or not the financial statements are fairly stated. And if you look at the top of page 2, that's where we actually have our opinion paragraph. And if you actually read through that, we basically give our opinion that these financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with the modified cash basis of accounting. So that's the type of opinion that you guys would want to see. Turning to page 5, and if anyone has any questions as I go through, just let me know. So page 5 is the balance sheet for the governmental funds. And what I wanted to point out here is the revolving loan fund. As you can see, all the numbers are 0 for that fund. During the year, the village was notified by the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity that the revolving loan funds were no longer restricted monies. So what that allowed us to do is basically shut down the fund and move all the monies that were in that fund over to the general fund. So we ended up moving $440,000 in cash from that revolving loan fund over to the general fund. And we also ended up moving the only outstanding loan from the revolving loan fund to the general fund. So that's why you see all zeros in that revolving loan fund. The village ended the fiscal year with $1.5 million in cash in the general fund. That was an increase of about $444,000, and the main reason behind that was the movement of money from the revolving loan fund to the general fund. If you turn to page 7, this is where we have the statement of revenues for the governmental funds. And towards the bottom, you'll see we have a category called Other Financing Sources. And you can see in the revolving loan fund, we have transfers out. And you can see in the general fund, we have transfers in. So that is where we actually moved the cash in loan receivable from the revolving loan fund to the general fund. And just right before that section, we have a line called Excess Deficiency of Revenues Received over Expenditures Dispersed. And you can see for the general fund, we had just over $2,000 in revenues exceeding disbursements for the fiscal year. That compares to a loss of about $76,000 in the prior fiscal year. And if you remember in FY16, you guys had a significant amount of expenditures. I think it was related to some sidewalk improvements that you guys had, and I think you guys had a significant amount of equipment that was purchased that fiscal year. So that's why this year's numbers look so much better than the prior year. Turning to page number 9. This is where we actually have a comparison of the budget to the actual numbers for the general fund. And if you turn to page number 12, and this is essentially a cash flow statement. So you can see towards the bottom of page 12 there, receipts exceeded disbursements by $444,000, which I mentioned earlier. And the biggest reason behind that, again, is the transfer of monies between revolving loan fund and general fund. Page 15. This is where we have a statement of net position for the utility funds. And I'll go over in detail in a little bit the change in cash for the year. But other than that, there weren't a lot of significant changes on that statement this year. Turning to page 16 is where we have the statement of revenues for the utility funds. And you can see towards the bottom there where we have change in net position, we had some significant losses for the water fund and the sewer fund. And you can see we had a positive change for the gas fund. This is a bit misleading because of the significant amount of depreciation expense that you guys have. So in a second, I'll point out what maybe a better number to look at is kind of to judge the performance of those funds. But that's the statement of revenues for the utility funds. And then on page 17, statement of cash flows. I think this is kind of a better statement for you guys to look at to see how the funds are performing. At the very top is the section for cash flows from operating activities. So we have that broken down by each type of fund. And you can see that you guys had positive cash flow for the water fund, sewer fund, or water fund and gas fund, and then had a negative cash flows for the sewer fund. So the normal operations of the water fund and gas fund, you guys do see a profit for. With the sewer fund, I think this year you guys did have some significant repair expenses, and that's what probably caused it to have such a large loss this year. So I think that's probably a good number for you guys to look at. And then right below that section, we kind of have some unusual adjustments that you don't have every year, like purchase of capital assets and the retirement of the water fund debt. And then beginning on page 19 are the notes to the financial statements. And in the notes, we kind of just describe the accounting policies of the village. And we also give detail on some of the information that we included on the statements. There was one last thing that I wanted to point out that I missed. If you go back to page number 5, and I believe at last year's meeting I mentioned this to you guys. Under the fund balance section, we have a restriction for unemployment taxes. And you can see we have an amount there of $21,000. Basically what this represents is all the property tax money that you guys have collected for unemployment tax that you guys have not used yet. So the amount of $21,000 is a pretty high number. Just to give you guys an idea of how big that number is, normally I think in the general fund, you guys spend about $530 on unemployment tax each year, where you're collecting about $1,000 in unemployment tax monies. So if that continues, it's just going to continue to grow and grow. So whether you guys want to make adjustments related to that, it's up to you. But
which we would do that with the tax levy.
You could either adjust the tax levy, or you could pay more of the unemployment tax out of the general fund instead of the utility funds. But
Because we just distribute them like with whatever fund they're in, like if somebody's in the gas,
Right.
it comes out of gas.
yeah, that's how you guys have it set
Yeah.
up. But if you wanted to, you pay that.
Just pay it out of
unemployment-
general.
Right.
And that would bring that number down then.
Right. So that's all I wanted to discuss on the financial statements. Were there any questions? I did have one more item that I wanted to discuss with the board. A couple months ago, the Illinois Comptroller's Office sent a letter to the village, and they indicated that the village was not in compliance with some state statutes related to reporting. So what they were referencing was that the Comptroller's Office believes that the audit should be done on the accrual basis of accounting. You guys have always done the audit on the cash basis of accounting. Only recently have they kind of pointed this out to everybody. So what they're trying to do is force everyone to switch to the accrual basis of accounting. So it's my understanding that they really wanted this done in FY16, but they've kind of allowed everyone to continue on the cash basis. So what they've recently said is that FY19 is the year that they want everyone to switch to the accrual basis of accounting. And if you do that, they won't assess any penalties on you. I think there's a lot of disagreement with this. So there's enough people upset that there's a chance that this gets changed, where either they change the law or the Comptroller's Office doesn't enforce this. But as it stands right now, you would be required to switch to the accrual basis of accounting the year after this current year. So I don't know if you guys were aware of that, but
Well, I thought you had said that we wouldn't have to switch, you would just have to switch the way you do your audit, which would be a little bit more costly.
right. So Teresa and Joyce could continue to account for everything the way they have been, but then when we come in and do the audit, we would have to make all these journal entries to basically adjust from the cash basis to the accrual basis. So I don't know that it's really helpful to have the audit on the accrual basis. Obviously, we've continued to do the audit on the cash basis because we just don't see the benefit of doing it on the accrual basis. But again, you're right, Teresa, you guys really wouldn't have to make any changes, but there would be significant audit adjustments that we would have to make. So that's how it stands right now. We'll just have to wait and see what they decide in the future. But hopefully they come to their senses and realize it's not beneficial for smaller governments to have to have the audit on the accrual basis.
Well, I think there's going to be a shift in the decision-making on as far as what method to utilize. The Comptroller's Office is significantly behind in all other types of reporting.
Yes, they are.
For instance, you know, you guys don't have a TIP report, but those are due in October, and they still haven't provided the forms necessary to file. And in fact, if you follow the letter of the law, each municipality would be penalized on a daily basis for a fine. So,
Well, we couldn't even get our
Yeah.
comptroller's report.
The annual
like-
report is normally filed in July or August. They wouldn't let us file it until, I think it was late October of
Yes.
this
Right.
year. So it's kind of a mess up there. And with them wanting to make this change, it only causes more problems for them. So I don't know what they'll decide.
I think right now you just hold and wait would probably be the best.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys wanted to, this upcoming audit, we could change to the accrual basis. It's really up to you guys.
Why don't we just wait until they make us?
You can,
that?
that's fine, that's not a problem.
I mean, that's not my decision, that's you guys'
Sure.
decision.
I just want you guys to be informed of what's going on, and that would be a significant change in 2 years. So, something that's coming up.
I would recommend just to review it at least on a quarterly basis to see whether there's updates.
You mean to see what the update is with the state as far as this?
Yes.
Well, I've been getting emails from IML on that
Right.
too.
As long as you're getting those, then you should be fairly
Yeah.
updated.
Yeah.
Any questions? All right. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Nick.
Okay. Superintendent's report.
You guys have any questions for me on my report before I start? If not, there's only two things that I was gonna mention. That was the backhoe. We should be getting a new 2018, trading this out straight up for the 2017 because of all the problems that we've had with it. So, we went up last week and we looked at it just to make sure everything was gonna work and didn't die on us while we were in the parking lot, so that's better than the other one. But that should be coming in soon. And then the other thing that I had was I got the natural gas agreement today, so you guys have all got copies of that. And if
Can I
nobody-
respond to his question really quickly, so that everyone knows what they're looking at?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Jordan. The red line, or the blue color, they're in both. Those are my amendments based on his request for revisions. So they are his revisions, but he didn't draft them. He wanted me to draft them. So it's my drafting, but based on his request, his being.
John Barber's, which the most significant one that I would say would be the change in the length of the agreement, right, to 5 years.
Yes, but the way, and he hasn't reviewed these
Yeah,
proposed
this is all-
revisions. Normally what happens is one party submits the agreement, the other party amends it, not one party submits the agreement, the other party tells you what to amend, and you amend it. That's fine, I mean, this at least gets it going. So he hasn't reviewed these, but what I did, based on what he requested, is put it in the initial term 5 years, automatic renewal for 5-year terms. And it would automatically renew unless either party provided written notice within designated timeframes before the next 5-year renewal period. So that it just automatically would do it. In hopes that you're not looking at this all the time. But then give you enough time if somebody does terminate to come up with a plan, right?
I guess the next step is to throw it back to John and let him review it, and hopefully everything will be good and done. So.
And Jordan, I'll talk to you. I need one little amendment on Exhibit C.
Okay.
Because I'd like a detail inside, even if
Okay.
it meant taking a picture.
I've got a picture of a map that I tried to take today. It's not a map, but it's an old plan, so it didn't come out the way I wanted it to, so I'll have to work on it some.
But so far, that looks great. There's
Okay.
just one little thing I'd like to add to it,
Right.
to really show a detail of the interconnection point. But you did a great job. When I opened it up, I'm like, that looks great.
Well, if you can look at what I've got right before we leave tonight and tell me it'll be okay.
Oh, you want, okay, well, I'll do
Well,
that. Yeah.
I've got it in the office.
Okay.
You can just look at it and then that way I'll know if that works. And that's all I've really got are these two things. So. I guess if you got any concerns or problems, just let me know and we'll talk about it then. I know you haven't had time to look over it, so. That's all I've got.
That's all you've got?
Yeah.
Anybody got any questions for Jordan? Okay. Police report. Got anything to add to this, Daniel?
Not to the monthly report, other than that my hours were down a little bit because I used several of my vacation days this month. And then I don't know, do I talk about the appointment of James now, or is that later?
That's later.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And
You
then,
can talk about it. When you talk about it.
Yeah, you can
We
always
can move
move
it to your,
things.
move it to you.
okay. We originally talked about Springfield.
Call that one though.
Oh.
Go ahead and call that. I remember if we were here.
Okay. Ordinance appointing James Hauser for part-time employment for PTI. is what Daniel's going to discuss.
Okay. We originally started off, we had talked about sending James to the Springfield Academy. When I had called them, they said they had 19 positions open. When I got the agreement from everyone and called them back 3 days later, they had all been filled. So I called Carbondale, they had 15 spots open. Talked to the mayor, we went ahead and enrolled him in that position and into that academy because it's pretty much the same thing. It is $100 more than the Springfield Academy, but we get 50% back, so it's only going to cost the village $50 extra. I did a Form E, which is the Illinois Training Standards Board's appointment form for James. So at that point, I have I did that prior to finding out Springfield was full. So at that point, I have 6 months to get him into an academy, or he can never go to an academy. So we went ahead and enrolled him in Carbondale. Through all this process, I found out, we had talked in that board meeting that he didn't have to be appointed an employee of the village, but coming to find out through all this, he has to be appointed to the village to start an academy. So.
And that's what this document does, is appoints him.
His background check did come back clear, nothing on record, and I have personally watched him pass his power test. I mean, he'll still have to pass it at the academy, but I made him do the power test in front of me, and he has passed. He has done that.
Does he have a certificate or just a power certificate?
No, he just did it in front of me.
Okay,
So I know when the date comes on July 6th, he can pass it, because I know those were the two concerns, is his background check and the power test. So his background check has come back, and I can't guarantee he's not going to pull a hamstring that day and not complete the mile, but I've seen him complete it here. So, but if the board does, for some reason, would not appoint him, I cannot enroll him in the academy. And since we started the process, if another village doesn't pick him up and send him in 6 months, he'll never be able to go to academy again. So we'll kind of put him out there on a limb.
And he would not be paid, or
No.
it's
Right,
just
he's still agree he won't be
just
paid, he just has to be
basically
appointed as an officer to get to the academy.
Part-time officer.
Right.
Effective upon passage, and then he has to sign the standard reimbursement policy.
Right.
Right.
Question. Can we see the background check?
Yeah, I'm gonna get it. Yep.
Would that be appropriate?
Yes, and you can go into executive session if you'd like to do that. You don't have to. You don't have to go into executive session to review it, but I'm just saying you have the ability to go into executive session if you'd like to do so, to review the background check for a specific.
Would that be a good idea?
I generally recommend
Okay.
that a background check so that you can have a full and
Okay,
comprehensive.
can I make a motion that we're going to executive session?
Going to section 2C1.
Section 231.
2C1.
Okay.
Personnel.
2C1.
You have made a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, section 2C1, so we need a second.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. Let's call for vote.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Back into open session.
Roll call. Ingram.
Yes.
Duval.
Yes.
Titus.
Yes.
Markwell.
Yes.
St. John.
Yes.
Schultz.
Treasurer's report. Action, middle of the month bills.
I have in the middle of the month bills.
Okay.
Anyone have
Okay.
any questions?
Hearing none, we'll move on to the clerk's report.
We just have a couple of things. A resolution for scheduled meetings for the upcoming year. Regular session and committee.
Anybody have any problems with, or questions or comments at all on that?
I guess they stay on the first Monday of the month, do they?
There's a couple of them.
Holidays or
Holidays.
whatever.
Right.
Okay.
There's just two, for Tuesday. Next month. Will be one.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, I need a motion to adopt or to accept that resolution for the meeting.
Adopt the resolution for the board meeting.
It's not just board meetings, it's committees as well, establishing a schedule, just for clarification, sorry.
Board meeting and committee meetings.
Gotcha.
Shorty made the motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
So, we have a motion and a second to adopt a resolution establishing a schedule of meetings. Call for vote?
Yes.
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 Move on into
We're gonna wait on the second item, number
Mhm.
2. Call item number 3.
Item number 3 is an ordinance adopting a policy prohibiting sexual harassment.
November 16, General Assembly enacted a new law, new provisions requiring each municipality to adopt a specific sexual harassment prohibition policy. Joyce has prepared a proposed ordinance and policy. I would like an opportunity to look at it to ensure that it does provide the necessary regulations, but ensure that it fits this type of smaller municipality. Generally speaking, the act has to, or the policy has to have very specific regulations in it prohibiting sexual harassment, not just to employees. It does define what sexual harassment includes, so, whistles, catcalls, anything like that. I would take an extra step to ensure that everyone gets a copy of this once it's adopted. On a side note, it does have to be adopted within 60 days of the passage date of November 16th, so January 15th. So the next meeting it has to be adopted. There is significant fines associated with the violation. I believe it's $5,000 per offense, and every day that it continues or every time that it occurs is a new fine. So it's pretty significant. So I just want to make sure that what she's prepared as she was provided fits the needs of the municipality, especially given the size.
Okay.
But take an opportunity to review the proposal because it is in line with the regulation, and so you should know it.
We don't need to take any action on
I wouldn't take any
that.
action tonight. I
Okay.
think the meeting in January will be sufficient. It'll give you time to actually review the regulation, to know what it requires, so you can actually put some investigation and consideration into it.
Okay.
Nothing on either computer.
Okay.
I don't have anything else.
Go
Okay.
ahead and fill out
So
one.
now back to item number 2, the ordinance appointing James Hauser for part-time employment for PTI. Motion and a second.
This here?
No,
Yes.
Says Dieter.
Well, it's been
She will
revised.
She asked it for it in like 2 seconds. It's been revised.
Okay, so there's another one in here?
That's
Said,
right.
I need it now.
It should be, should have been laying right there for you, Shorty.
Good.
Right here, maybe. There it is.
So it's my fault. We corrected it today.
okay, I have a motion
You need to say
by who
motion to approve
To
or deny.
to, oh, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve.
I need a second. So we have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance appointing James Hauser for part-time employment for PTI. Call for vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Do you have anything else, Joyce?
No, I don't.
Okay. Today, we had a ceremony at the county, and Joyce and Teresa and Larry and myself was there, and Chuck and Jordan was over here raising the flag. I'm going to read this resolution in support of the Illinois Bicentennial Celebration. Whereas August 26, 2018 will mark the 200th anniversary of the adoption of the Illinois Constitution of 1818 at the Kaskaskia Convention. And whereas December 3, 2018 will mark the 200th anniversary of the admission of Illinois to the Union as a state. And whereas the bicentennial of our statehood is an opportunity to recognize and celebrate the many cultural, economic, academic, and political contributions that Illinois and its residents have made to the nation and the world. And whereas commemorations and celebrations will enable and encourage Illinoisans of all ages and backgrounds, together with visitors, to experience Illinois' 1,298 cities, villages, and towns, thereby stimulating the Illinois economy. And whereas our community recognizes the importance of the bicentennial celebration as a way to honor the citizens and the history of our great state and set a course for success over our next 200 years. And whereas our community, through its various councils, committees, and congregations, should work together with the Illinois Bicentennial Commission and the state's citizens, businesses, and cultural and educational institutions to share our vision and projects to mark the 200th anniversary. And whereas participation in Illinois Bicentennial Celebration is a unique opportunity to honor and showcase a state during this historic time. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Toledo endorses the efforts of the Illinois Bicentennial Commission in promoting, planning, and executing historic, education, celebratory, and cultural initiatives, and further resolves to recognize and celebrate the bicentennial of the state of Illinois. So there's a flag on the county flagpole And we have one identical to it out here on our flagpole, so. Floyd Holkenbrink read that today, and the wind was blowing so hard you couldn't hear a word, so. So I thought
They've already lost their flag too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's too bad.
Blew off.
Oh my,
They're real.
too bad.
Did they get it back?
Yeah, they got the flag back. I think they got Village of Greenup coming over to help fix the flagpole.
Yeah, I noticed they were having some problems.
It's pretty tore up. Up
The only other thing I have is the employee Christmas bonus, which is something that we do every year. I don't remember what last year's.
It's $250, and then we do 25 for part-time, but Johnny had mentioned, we usually do those merchant bucks, in which there isn't really a whole lot of place to spend now, maybe do
Very true.
cash for them as well.
Yeah,
Those are part-time from out of town. So
Yeah.
Out
Right.
of town, so they have to come.
right.
So I just give them cash as well.
So if that's something we need to, or we want to do, we need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion on the Christmas bonus. Second. 250 on the full-time, 25 on the part-time.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to improve the employee Christmas bonus of $250 for full-time and $25 for part-time. Call for vote.
Yes.
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 Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any trustee concerns? Anybody, anything you need to bring before the board?
I noticed our lights fixed over at the Democrat office.
Noticed that too.
Good job.
Yeah, made a difference, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Keith, you got anything? Shorty? Brian? Saint?
Is there any way we can, I know all the dirt's hopefully been moved from the YMCA site. Is there any way we can, DOT, I've sent a couple of emails to the
Have him broom it
lead
or?
worker and he's not replied. So is there any way we can clean up, get it to the curb somehow, or put rocks and crud and,
Well, county got their broom on their
Okay.
tractor.
instead of going down the storm sewer?
No.
No?
They don't have it on there.
No, it's put up for the winter.
I think I say is I seen out at the 7 Mile curve, the state did it with their snow plows. They dropped their snow plows. I don't know if I'd
Mm.
guys
Yeah, I don't know if that
it
is-
up or.
Fire hose? No, that's.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep it out of the storm sewer, yeah.
It's gonna go down
Yeah,
the
it's
storm sewer, isn't it? Yeah.
10-ton of rock.
Mm.
Maybe talk to Greg and see if he can, because they have a power broom in front of one of their trucks. See if he could come through maybe. Roberts.
It'd be
Or
nice.
at least get it to the edge and maybe we can pick it up with a backhoe or rent the counties or borrow the counties or whatever. Yeah, I'm sure they wouldn't have theirs on. but-
I'll see what I can do with it.
Larry,
That's
you
all.
have anything? Okay. I'll take this time to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, safe holiday season. And we'll see you in 2018. If there's nothing else for the good of the village,
We'll see you next year.
need a motion to adjourn. And a second. Call for vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, adjourned.